Have you ever wondered, what if the reflection staring back at you isn't really you? What if the shadow behind your shoulder, the one you never notice, is waiting for you to blink? Tonight, you'll hear two terrifying stories. One about a photographer who captured something that shouldn't exist, a shadow that wanted to be seen. And another about a woman who discovered that her reflection had a mind of its own and a hunger to replace her. These aren't just stories. They're reminders that when you stare into the darkness, sometimes the darkness stares right back. Story 1. The first time I saw it, my coffee was still hot, and the clock on my wall read 9:47 p.m. I was sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, sorting through old photographs. The only light, a single table lamp casting long, trembling shadows on the faded wallpaper. That's when I noticed it. A patch of darkness, sharper than any ordinary shadow, sliding up the wall like oil on water. There was nothing behind it. No lamp, no figure, no source. My breath caught, and then, slowly, deliberately, it turned its head. It had a head, and stared straight at me. My name is Mara, and I rent a 2-bedroom apartment in the old Ashwood building in Pittsburgh. It's a crumbling brick structure from the 1800s, the kind of place where the walls whisper if you listen too closely. I moved in 3 months ago, drawn by the absurdly low rent and the promise of quiet after my divorce. The landlord warned me about the drafty windows and the odd noises, but I dismissed him as an old man milking superstitions for extra cash. I was wrong, very wrong. The shadow didn't start immediately. The first 2 weeks were blissfully normal, just the creak of floorboards, the hum of the city beyond my fire escape, the rhythmic tap of rain on the glass. Then, one night, it appeared. I was washing dishes, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a silhouette detach from the hallway wall and glide across the kitchen tiles. It had no shape beyond a blunt, humanoid form, and it vanished when I spun around. I told myself it was fatigue. My divorce had left me raw, and sleep came in jagged fragments. But it kept happening. At first, it was subtle, a flicker in peripheral vision, a momentary stain of darkness against a lighter surface. I'd turn, and nothing. My cat, Silly, would often sit and stare at empty corners, his fur bristling, a low growl rumbling in his throat. It's just a cat thing, I told myself. Yet every time I caught Silly's gaze fixed on nothing, the air would feel unnaturally cold, as if the room's temperature had plummeted 10 degrees in a single breath. I set up cameras, 4 of them, 2 pointed at the living room, 1 at the hallway, 1 at my bedroom door. For days, nothing. Then, on the 6th night, the footage showed it. Not a full manifestation, just a ripple. At 02:17 a.m., the hallway camera captured a shadow that flowed from the wall, pooling on the floor like liquid before dissolving. There was no light source nearby to cast it. The EMF reader I'd left running spiked to 0.5 milligauss, then flatlined. My skin prickled as I watched, the laptop screen casting an eerie glow on my face. This wasn't psychology. This wasn't fatigue. I began documenting everything. I kept a journal, time-stamped each occurrence, sketched every detail. The shadow always appeared in the same areas: the hallway, the living room, and the corner of my bedroom where my bed stood. It never entered the bathroom or the spare room. It moved with eerie purpose, never hurried, never hesitant. Sometimes it seemed to watch me, lingering near doors as if waiting for an invitation. Other times, it mimicked me. Once, I saw it sitting perfectly still in my armchair, its outline mirroring my own posture from minutes earlier. I asked around. Mrs. Pelletier, the building's elderly superintendent who chain smokes by the boiler room, squinted at me over her glasses. That old place? Of course there's shadows. They're the ghosts of tenants past. When I pressed her, she grew evasive. One girl who lived here 20 years back, quiet thing, died sudden. They said heart, but I heard she was crying the night before. Found alone in the hallway. No sign of struggle, just gone. My research uncovered Evelyn Rourke, a 22-year-old art student who'd rented the very apartment I now occupied. Her file was thin. A police report mentioning natural causes. A coroner's sketch showing pale, almost translucent skin. There was no photo of her face. Just a footnote. Subject appeared agitated in final days. Claimed to see a shadow following her. Then the manifestations grew bolder. One midnight, I woke to the feeling of being watched. Silly was perched on my chest, vibrating with fear. Before I could speak, a deep, resonant thump echoed from the hallway. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and stepped out. There, pooled against the far wall, was the shadow, a tall, willowy form that seemed to absorb the light. It didn't run. It didn't hide. It simply held. As I advanced, it dissolved when the beam hit it, only to reappear 5 feet to the left. I followed it, flashlight in hand, until it led me to the bedroom. There, it stopped. For the first time, it turned. I don't know how to describe what I saw. It had no eyes, no mouth, but a sense of focus radiated from its core. The shadow tilted forward, as if to lean into me, and an icy breath, cold as grave soil, washed over my face. My lungs seized. I stumbled back, fell against the wall, and when I looked again, it was gone. But pressed into the wallpaper where it had stood was an outline, faint and greasy, of a human shape. My hands shook so badly, I could barely grip my journal. The next phase was intimate. It started speaking to me in my dreams, not words, feelings, a deep, aching loneliness that mirrored my own. Then, whispers. They weren't audible, but they vibrated inside my skull. You see me, you know. I'd wake gasping, the taste of rust on my tongue, the impression of fingers, cold, boneless, tracing my collarbone. Once, I woke with a scratch on my thigh, a perfect line of pinpricks. I examined it in the mirror, and for a fractured second, the reflection of my face split. Behind me, in the glass, stood a darker version of myself, its mouth stretched in a silent scream. I blinked, and it vanished. Panic drove me to contact Dr. Eris Thorne, a parapsychologist whose articles I'd read. He arrived with sensors, a Geiger counter, and a skeptical frown. "Let's be scientific," he said. Whoa. Though his eyes darted to every shadow, we spent a night in my apartment. Nothing happened until 3 a.m. Then Silly yowled, racing into my arms. Then, in the hallway, the shadow boiled out of the wall. It wasn't just moving, it was swarming, a mass of fragmented darkness that lashed like tentacles. Dr. Thorne's equipment short-circuited. He grabbed my arm. "Get out, now!" We fled into the street as the building's lights flickered violently. Behind us, a scream, high, feminine, terrified, shredded the night. Not mine, not Dr. Thorne's. It was Evelyn's voice. I knew it. When the police arrived minutes later, the apartment was empty. No broken windows, no signs of struggle, just the faint, greasy outline on my bedroom wall and my cat sitting calmly, facing the hallway. The final encounter changed everything. I couldn't leave. Every time I packed a bag, the shadow would appear, and an overwhelming sense of dread would root me to the spot. It was as if the house itself held me. So I stayed. I stopped hiding. I confronted it. Every night, I sat in the hallway, facing the empty corner where it always emerged. I spoke to it. "What are you? Why are you here?" It answered in the only way it could: movement. On the 7th night, it appeared as a perfect mirror image of me, standing inches from my chair. We stared at each other, me and this thing. Its face wasn't featureless after all. In the dim light, I saw echoes of my own eyes, my nose, my mouth, but inverted, as if looking into a funhouse mirror that warped everything inside out. Then, it raised its shadowy hand, and I felt an impulse, not mine, move my own hand in tandem, like dancing partners. That's when I understood. The shadow wasn't haunting the apartment. It was waiting for a host. On the 14th night, it tried to merge. I was sitting on my bed, and the shadow oozed under the door, forming a pool at my feet. It rose, fast, and wrapped around my legs. I screamed, kicking, but it clung like cold smoke. I felt my body temperature drop, my heart beat slow. A voice, Evelyn's, or something using her memory, whispered directly into my mind, "You're ready now." I wasn't. I grabbed the salt lamp I'd kept on my nightstand, a stupid, hopeful gesture from a home decor blog, and smashed it into the shadow. The moment the warm amber light touched the darkness, it shrieked, a sound like tearing fabric amplified 1,000-fold, and recoiled. I scrambled to the bathroom, filled a bucket with ice water, and flung it at the hallway. The shadow screamed again, dissolving into the walls. Exhausted, I collapsed on the floor and fell asleep. I woke to sunlight. The apartment was silent. Silly nuzzled my hand. The cameras showed nothing. The wall was clean. For 2 days, peace. I let myself hope. Then I found the journal. Not mine, Evelyn's. Tucked behind a loose board under my floorboards, a small, leather-bound book, water-stained and crumbling. The pages were filled with her neat script. Day 47. It's getting stronger. I feel it watching. It wants to wear me like a suit. I see myself doing things I didn't do. I wrote the last entry and now the words are moving. Help. The final page was blank until I touched it. Under my fingers, the ink began to well up, forming new words. Mara, you're the replacement. It's in you now. That night, the shadow didn't come. But when I brushed my teeth, I saw it in the mirror, not a separate shape, my reflection, smiling. My real face felt slack, unresponsive. The smile in the glass widened, showing too many teeth. I whipped around. No one was there. I stared back. The reflection mimicked me perfectly, except it kept smiling when I stopped. I lunged at the mirror, smacking the glass. The surface cracked, but the reflection remained, unbroken, still smiling. When I looked away, it was gone. Now, I carry a compact mirror everywhere. In my bag, my car, my pocket, because I see it now in every reflective surface. A version of me that moves independently, just a fraction of a second ahead. When I pause, it pauses. When I sleep, it breathes. Last night, I recorded myself on video, speaking to the camera about the weather. When I played it back, there I was, and behind me, barely visible at first, stood the shadow, not floating, not detached, weaving itself from the air itself. And as I watched, my on-screen self turned, and the shadow placed its shadowy hand on my screen self's shoulder, a silent claim. The doctors say I'm experiencing complex PTSD. They don't understand. The shadow that moves without a body isn't bound to walls or light. It needs a vessel, and it chose me. Evelyn was its first attempt. Now it's mine. I write this from a coffee shop, far from Ashwood. My reflection in the window shows only me, for now, but I feel the cold pressure at the nape of my neck, like fingers made of night. It's patient. It always has been. Because shadows don't need bodies. They become them. Story 2. The first time I saw it, the flash had just exploded behind me. The smell of chemicals from the darkroom flooded my nostrils, and there, in the nursery of Ward 13, a damp, decaying room I'd just photographed, a shadow stood, sharp, deliberate, lurking in the corner. I checked the image. No one was there. No trick of light, just nothing. And then, silently, the shadow smiled. My name is Areen. I'm a photographer, a hunter of abandoned places. My latest project was Street Mercy Asylum in Pittsburgh, a crumbling, century-old monument to forgotten pain. Ward 13, sealed off since 1975, was my focus. They called it the Unquiet Wing. Locals crossed the street to avoid it. I didn't believe them until I saw it. I spent 4 days documenting the asylum, capturing every cracked wall and stained floor. On the 3rd day, I ventured into the nursery of Ward 13. The room was small, ceiling sagged, and the air reeked of mildew and something older, like rusted iron. Sunlight seeped through a shattered window, casting long, trembling stripes across the floor. I set my camera on timer, aiming it at the far corner where a rusted rocking horse sat. The flash fired. When I developed the film in my darkroom later that night, the first image showed the empty room, dust motes, peeling paint, nothing else. But the second photograph, in the shadowed corner of the nursery, beneath the window, a shape, humanoid, no features, no face, just a blunt, masculine silhouette standing perfectly still. It wasn't a trick of light. There was no one there when I'd taken the shot. I examined the camera, lenses clean, no mirrors nearby. And yet, there it was. Worse, when I stared at the print, the shadow shifted, its head tilted, as if acknowledging me. That's when the real terror began. The next morning, I brushed my teeth. Only then did I notice the bathroom mirror. My reflection was delayed by a fraction of a second. When I raised my hand, the reflection mimicked me, but its movements were sluggish, unwilling. Then, behind my own reflection, I saw it. The shadow from the photograph. It stood in the mirror's dark recesses, its form flickering like static. My breath hitched. I spun around. The bathroom was empty. I looked back. The shadow was gone. But the mirror, the glass was unnaturally cold to the touch. It grew bolder. One evening, I sat in my living room under a solar lamp, editing photos on my laptop. A painting hung on the wall to my left. From the corner of my eye, I saw the shadow slip out from behind the frame. It moved with liquid grace, gliding across the carpet toward me. My heart thundered. I flicked on the lamp's bright beam. The shadow dissolved into the air, but when I looked closer, the paint on the wall where it had stood was smeared. A greasy, shadowy stain, like an ink blot left to dry. I set up EMF monitors, infrared cameras, thermal sensors. Nothing registered until the shadow appeared. Then, the EMF meter would spike to 0.4 milligauss before flatlining. The air would drop 10 degrees in seconds, and if the solar lamp's light touched the shadow, it would scream, a sound like tearing silk, amplified into a visceral shriek that made my teeth ache. Desperate, I sought help from Mrs. Lerda, an elderly historian who'd studied Street Mercy for decades. Over a cloud of cigarette smoke, she said, Ward 13 was the cult's playground in the 70s. They believed shadows were trapped souls, fragments of people who died here. The cult tried to free them, but something went wrong. The shadows stopped being ghosts. They became hunters. She gave me a diary, a child's, Eliza Hart. She'd lived in Ward 13 in 1972. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but her words sent ice through my veins. The shadow comes at night. It stands at the end of my bed. It talks to me without a voice. It says it wants to wear me like a dress. I'm scared, but I want it to. I don't want to be alone anymore. The final entry, scrawled in frantic script. It's here now. It's inside me. Who am I? Who? That night, I returned to Ward 13. I stood in the nursery where I'd taken the photograph. The air thickened. The EMF monitor spiked. Then, from the corner where the shadow had stood in the picture, it emerged, not as a shadow, but as a reflection. My own image, warped in the dim light, standing inches from me. We stared at each other. Its face was mine, but inverted, a funhouse mirror version where eyes and mouth swapped places. Then, slowly, it raised its hand. And my own hand rose, in perfect unison. I understood then. This wasn't a haunting, it was an occupation. The shadow didn't want to scare me. It wanted to replace me. Eliza had been its first vessel. Now, it had come for me. I fled, calling Mises Lurda in a panic. It's trying to take me, I choked out. She warned. It uses reflections. Break every mirror, Aaron. Destroy every surface that can show you. I did. I smashed bathroom mirrors, car windows, picture frames. I covered every reflective surface in my apartment with black cloth. For 2 days, silence, peace. Then, last night, I checked the security camera footage from my hallway. I'd been filming the empty room for background noise. On the screen, I watched myself sitting on the floor, browsing on my phone. The timestamp read 2:17 a.m. But there, in the background, behind MEA, darker version of me stood. Not a shadow, not a reflection. It was weaving itself from the air itself, thread by thread of darkness. And when I looked closer, its hand, it placed it on the shoulder of the person on the screen, me, in a silent, claiming grip. Doctors call it acute paranoia. They don't understand. Now, I carry a compact mirror everywhere. I check every surface I pass, because I feel it now. A cold, persistent pressure behind my ribs, like fingers made of night. It breathes through me. It blinks when I blink. Yesterday, I recorded myself on video reading a book aloud. When I played it back, there I was, and behind me, just for a single frame, stood Eliza Hart. Her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Then she was gone. The shadow doesn't need a body. It becomes the body. The end.